in the back. Please take them. If not, we will leave them for our dedicated men and women of the fire department. I am now going to introduce Captain Starling, who is the captain of this wonderful fire station. Thank you so much again for opening it up to us.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to come to our station here in Lents. This is your fire station. It's the only one that we have. It's actually one of the best ones in the city and the state. We run well over 7,000 runs here, and the majority of the runs that we go on are legit compared to a lot of runs in the rest of the city. I want you to all understand that this is a great opportunity to be here with Commissioner Gonzalez on a Saturday to be away from his family. Please be mindful and respectful of time. It's very tight, so if you have a question, try to keep it brief, and be sure to share the floor with others. With that being said, I want to point out that 2 years running, Firefighter Shaley, the one with the hat and glasses sitting right there, he has been our champion at this station. He's one of the best in the Bureau, so yeah.
Well, thanks for coming out on this Saturday, y'all. I'm going to tell you about some things going on in the fire department and public safety in general, and then just want to hear your questions. A couple of changes in the fire bureau that impacts Lents very directly and the east side as a whole. We were able to stabilize funding this year for rescues, for chat, and for PSR in a way we haven't been able to do in a number of years. And for a lot of reasons, we put what was called the rescues, which are the two-person rigs, to brush rig out here. Can we see our rescues? This guy right here? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so those were originally developed to do a number of things, and over the last decade, their use has changed. You're used to a certain way out here in Lents. It's a little bit different sometimes than other places, but it's capable of brush fires. Has it been called out to do any of the regional fires, or have we kept it mostly local?
Not yet. Last year, it did get called out, and it is always on standby. The city does like to try to keep around because, as you know, we have a lot of urban areas that have a lot of density with compression boilers, so we try to keep them as close as possible.
And what I'm referring to, getting called out, we have mutual aid obligations, and then when there's state fires across the state, some of Portland fire assets get called in to use them. So we're always part of that team. But bottom line is fire's budget did well this cycle. We had to do some arm wrestling with some of my colleagues on pieces of it, but fire was held harmless. That meant we preserved all staffing. In fact, on the east side last year, we actually increased staffing. We went from a two-person rig to a four-person rig at the fire station right next to the task site there on Powell. So we're actually increasing our coverage a little bit on the east side. I'd like to do more, but we're making some incremental changes there. The other thing, you may not have heard a lot about chat, but that was our low acuity medical program that was started a few years back, two-person rigs. Its headquarters are actually going to be moved to the east side. I think it's going to be on about 123rd and Powell. And with that, we're adding an additional overdose response team entirely devoted to the east side. And the good news with that is that it was intended to help alleviate your core station responses on overdoses. We started this earlier in the year in Station 1, which is your downtown, the big house. And as you may know, that station sees a lot of overdoses too. They dealt with 300 in 1 month. And was just crushing our firefighters, our system, our ambulance system. So what we piloted was just sending out a two-person rig in the chat vehicles to a lot of those overdoses. And we're finding it's very effective. Often Narcan has been administered by the time we get there. Previously we were sending a four-person fire rig, an ambulance, and a police officer to each of those overdoses. The police is so stretched right now, they rarely win, but you're still absorbing a lot of fire resources. So it worked well in District 1, and we're going to roll that out to the east side too. And why that matters, just to be crystal clear, is when you're absorbing that much resources for so it's very, very important that we rationalize and manage those resources effectively, so that when someone you care about is in trouble, we actually have the local fire and ambulance services to respond. Some other things going on, so you're actually going to see increased coverage in incremental ways on the east side, and I think that's a net positive. Most of that's happening a little bit north of Lents, but just the way things work inside a fire, that actually still indirectly helps. The more staffing we have in rush relatively close proximity, you may not see the folks that are directly responding to emergencies in your neighborhood, but just the capacity on the east side in general is going to help you a bit on the response. 911, I still receive BOAC. I'll tell you the really good news there and still some of the rough news there. Your 911 wait time right now, and I'm talking about the time you call, when you call and how long it takes someone to pick up, we're down about 33% from the highs of 2022. And your non-emergency number is 823-3333. I'm going to say that 3 times before I'm done, so I want everybody to remember non-emergency, 823-3333. That number, you're down about 65% in terms of wait times when calling non-emergency. That is super important because we know when people call non-emergency and they get frustrated, they turn around and call 911. And that's exactly what we don't want happening for a non-emergency event. So, really glad to see those trends there. I think they're going to continue to improve. We've made some real investments in the pipeline in our 911 system. We're seeing retention that we hadn't seen since the pandemic, really, and those are net positives. It's an investment in professionals and holding on to that. What's not improved? Police high priority. That means the time from when a call is dispatched to a police officer being at your door. Pre-pandemic, that was about 8 minutes for high priority calls. Right now, we're still trending about 23 minutes on those high priority calls. And that is the product of staffing and volume and the relationship there too. The biggest driver of that is what we call queue time. It's a little different how police and fire work. Fire's dispatched, they go. It's just that they're going. Police, you have a captain or someone on staff saying, I've only got this many resources and I've got this number of high priority calls at this given time. I've got to make a decision as to which high priority call I'm going to go to in what order. And so they call that queue. You literally have some leadership having to make, the air traffic decision as to which one I can respond to in what order. It's a challenge, and the only way we're going to get out of that is continue to invest in staff. And last year we got a little over 800 sworn police officers for the first time in a number of years. That's very good news. And the other good news is that we continue to recruit very effectively in Portland Police. That pipeline has been solid. We've gotten some help from the state in getting rid of some of the barriers to getting police officers online more quickly. What our biggest challenge is in Portland Police right now is retention. We lost a lot of police officers after the riots. There's a part of the police department that feels like they're owed an apology that this city may never effectively give them for what occurred in 2020. And we're seeing those folks quit at rates. It feels like it's slowing down a little bit, but that continues to be our single biggest challenge. I think we need 1,100 police officers in the city. We were once that when Portland was one of the safest cities in America. We were kind of in that range. And right now we're a little over 800. So we have a ways to go on that, to say the least. That's going to take a number of years of investment. And at the same time, we're into retention. It's getting new people on board and not losing the ones we have. But like I said, the pipeline looks okay there. It's just the retention that we've got to keep dragging away. The other thing to know, I see the 911 data every Monday morning in the city of Portland. And in terms of volume, we're down about 10% this year versus last year, and that seems to be holding up pretty well. So what we saw in the pandemic, overall volume went up about 40%. You can go from 2019 to about the peaks. Even in the last year, we were continuing to see growth. But we've been on a fairly sustained decline in overall 911 volume in the community. yeah, we got to see that continue for a while to really celebrate, but that is not a bad sign for any of us. And we've got to keep plowing away at the, the upstream causes of crime. So I think that's, I'll leave it at that. A couple other things, with bureau pullback starting on July 1 and implementing our new form of government, our relative roles are going to change a bit. One of the things I will continue to hold on to is the long-term strategic plan for public safety in the community. And one of the things we're really looking at bringing back at some point is neighborhood watch and business watch. And so that was killed in civic life a little bit before the pandemic. I think that was a mistake. I think we need to figure out a way for people to feel connected to public safety in their neighborhood in a way that they can actually have a positive impact. And so I just wanted to put that out there. That's something we're looking at when you have communities that really mobilize for public safety, and we do have subsets, including your neighborhood, a group of folks that are very focused on it. We want to figure out how to most effectively mobilize that. So I think the neighborhood watch, it could be part of the equation. I don't think you're going to see that in 2024. That's a little ways out. We've got to figure out how to. Unfortunately, we lost the muscle until that program. We lose the people who actually know how to run them. We don't really have a police department that's had a functioning one in a number of years, so they don't fully have the internal muscle to how to work with the neighborhood watch. So it's going to take a little time to build that up, and something I'm looking at big time. Man, I could go on. There's a lot going on in public safety. There's a lot going on in homelessness right now. I guess one other piece to note, I was a no on renewing the joint office of homelessness until Sheriff Peterson made me a promise this week that they're going to stop buying tents and tarps. That was a deal killer for me. They saw some volume in their burnout, but you're well familiar with this neighborhood, but I'm going to remind you some numbers. The city of Portland is going to spend $14 million this year cleaning up tents and tarps just on sidewalks and in city parks. They're going to spend another $20 million cleaning up the highways. Fortunately, we get reimbursed by the state for a good chunk of that. So we're going to spend close to $34 million just cleaning up tents, tarps, and campsites in the city of Portland this coming year. It is asinine that we have other government parties handing out tents and tarps while we're spending all this money cleaning up, plus investing in tax sites, plus investing in safe rest villages, plus the tax it puts on our emergency response system when we see the crime and overdoses in a lot of these encampments. So, and that doesn't even get to the environmental damage they do. So I held a hard line on that. I was pleased to see the county make some concessions there. I will serve with the mayor on the steering committee for the Joint Office of Homelessness Oversight, and I'm a big guy in terms of we're not going to abandon compassion, but we cannot enable and continue down that path in our community. So there will likely be some friction there, but I think that's where we are as a community. So anyways, I can yammer on all day if you'd like. Again, there's a lot of stuff going, but love to hear your questions. We do have some folks from the soon-to-be task site who can help with some of the technical questions there, but we'd love to hear your questions about anything.
Commissioner, I'm going to close the door and sit down the desk for you.
So I was told by one of the officers in Lents that we only had 4 officers at any given time in Lents. Is that true? Do you know the number?
Well, we have 3 precincts, and there are times during, and this is the difference between how fire and police staff. Right now, fire is 171 every day. That's a hell or high water number. Police has its targeted minimum staffing levels, but they don't. If they don't have enough available police officers, they don't maintain them. And so that's right. Well, it's just even total number of police officers working on any given night in the city of Portland. And So I don't know what they were referring to on the floor, but there are often times on a Saturday night or a Friday where you have, we're below 50% of what are supposed to be the minimum staffing levels for police. And that again is a product of we need to be around 1,100, not 800 on some. Now that's not 24/7 that we're that far below target staffing, but it's happening way too much, and it's just not enough police officers. Again, one difference between the way we manage staffing and fire and police and BOACs, even slightly in between the two. Firefighters we will compel to work overtime. It's not a pleasant thing. They work a 24-hour shift, and then sometimes we tell them they have to work another 24-hour shift. Nothing pleasant about that. It's expensive. It's harder on firefighters. Police, we have historically not done that, except for in very specific scenarios. So if there's a civil disorder event on election night in November, we may compel overtime in that situation, but it's just not utilized as a technique quite the same way in police, and so we don't have a choice with that. And it explains the 23-minute wait time I was talking about on high priority police calls. When you're that low, it just there's not enough officers to get there, and so all the calls are doing.
I would say anecdotally 23 seems like a very low number. When I've had to call the police from issues directly related to the Safe Rest Village, I still know that response time is supposed to be 1 hour or 4 hours.
And that would
that's from people breaking into homes or actively setting up a tent on someone's property.
So that's the 23 is what they call high priority, which would be literally someone's in physical danger, or that might not even constitute. I'm thinking about attempting to set up on private property. I don't know that they would queue that as high priority. That's more like 45 minutes to an hour. It's put close to your expectations. If you even get, in the lower priority ones, you're not going to get a response that day. You'll likely get one the next day at the best.
Yeah, I want to take a step back because I realized how that question came off. That was more directed at them than it was at you.
Yeah, no problem. No, I mean, people.
There's going to be a lot of frustration here. And part of it is because they keep telling me to call the police. And so like if I come home and it's a Friday night and there's someone from the Safe Rest Village on the corner yelling at me and approaching me and my wife, get the fuck over here. And I say, hey, I approach them and I talk to them and I say, hey, can we get a hold of Urban Alchemy to help manage this? And we don't have a phone number you can call, so we're just call the police. What are the police going to come out and do? Tell them to keep moving? So when you tell me that, this is fine, right? The problem has to be managed in some capacity, right? It has to be managed somewhere. So if we're going to throw more money at a Safe Rest Village or a task, and that's how the city chooses to deal with that problem, what mitigating steps are going to be taken for the people that live right next to it? Are we going to get enhanced police support and enforcement? Because we all know that these really shouldn't be in a residential neighborhood. I have more homeless people and drug addicts living in my neighborhood than I do homeowners.
Pancakes.
There's a Boys and Girls Club right there, right there. And it has RVs all in front of it. And the city, that $14 million that's being spent helped do all that stuff. They spent a portion of that, right? 2 weeks ago, and it's already all back.
Yeah.
Right? It's already all back. Same thing with the one over here on 205 and right off the highway. It's just like, I work 50, 60 hours a week, work construction, I'm up early, come home late, right? And I just have drug addicts and dealers showing in front of my house because the city brought it there. So if you're serious about running for mayor, right, what I would say is think about things like that and where those are being put, right?
Fair enough. And just to be clear, this isn't a political visit. This is my job as the secretary, so I can't talk too much about running for mayor here. But I'll break down a couple of pieces, and maybe I'll have the folks that can supplement the answers on the management of the task sites. The expectations of Urban Alchemy is that they're managing around the task sites. That is the expectation. That's actually part of the contractual obligation of the city of Portland. So, that area is their contractual obligation to be affirmatively monitoring, and so I think you continue to hold whoever you're dealing with at the city's feet to the fire, and that is the contractual obligation they've made to the city of Portland. Honestly, I think on Powell, we've actually had some pretty good success in them controlling that space around it. Particularly as it relates to activities that are connected in any way to the task site, right? People there, behaviors they engage with in close proximity to that task site, we do hold Irving accountable for that. The whack-a-mole problem you're referring to, we push RVs out, we clean up camps, and they're back there a few days later or a couple of weeks later. This is 100% an area where we need help from the state legislature and the governor. And yesterday we got a really big decision in the Ninth Circuit, overruling the Ninth Circuit, and the Johnson decision and Martin v. Boise. And these were two decisions that basically said it's cruel and unusual for cities to ban outdoor camping if there's not enough shelter. It created a gigantic mess in the entire Ninth Circuit for cities. Supreme Court said that's nuts. It's not something judges should be intervening in. But the problem we have in Portland right now is a problem we have in the entire state. It's House Bill 3115, which basically codified it. So we still have to prove, even though that Supreme Court decision was made, we have to go prove to a Multnomah County judge anytime we're sued over it that any restrictions we put on campsites and on RVs is reasonable to the homeless persons. And that has proven incredibly difficult to prove to a Multnomah County judge. We're going to write a check next week for $175,000 to Oregon Law Center. What are we writing them a check for? Because they sued us under the statute on behalf of some homeless people. And we are mandated under the statute to pay their lawyers their fees when they sue us under these type of under time, place, manner restrictions. And so it's a huge pain for cities. Governor Kotek and the state legislature need to fix it. The other piece of this is the notice requirements. A lot of the notice requirements on sweeps come straight out of state law. And that is not something we get 100% control in the city of Portland. I can tell you the rate of sweeps is going up. We've doubled down on it. We're not going to slow down on it, but it's incredibly expensive and it's incredibly frustrating for the city to clean and for them to be back a couple days later.
Yeah, I think the frustrating part is that as we do more sweeps, where those people go?
Yeah.
They go to the task sites. And then what does that look like for those neighborhoods? And how is the safety being implemented? Because you're right, Urban Alchemy and this city, Ryan's team owns everything, and they're claiming only up to 2 blocks, and we know that spills over more than 2 blocks. It's impossible to bring on 2, right? And so living within that 2 blocks, it's already hard, right? And then we can push back on that. But then I don't know, it's crazy to me that, I'll see the same vehicles show up day in and day out that are obviously dealing drugs, waiting for people. You're just you can't get one officer or detective to just I can get it. It's still a whack-a-mole problem. How many more dealers are we going to find, right?
Yeah. I'm going to answer one part of your question, and I'll get to the next one. But I just want to call out one piece of good news we got this in the last week is the presiding judge's order, which is in Multnomah County. It addresses pretrial release for drug dealers. This has been incredibly frustrating for Portland police. We arrest a drug dealer, and they're out back on the streets within 12 hours, right? And even before seeing a judge. And again, it's the product of state law that was recently applied. We only get to hold people if they're deemed to have done serious crimes against people. And drug dealers, for whatever reason, weren't deemed to be in that category. That has changed. And right around September, you're going to see that change in Multnomah County that we're holding those drug dealers longer. But that is a vicious, brutal fight. I mean, the fentanyl meth fight right now it's all hands on deck for our community. And I know we're not the only city dealing with it, but it's hard to find a higher priority in terms of getting all of our court system and local government, state government going in the same direction. I'll also tell you that I've been quite close with our next DA, Vasquez, where there's a lot of discussion around the deflection program that's going to be rolled out in Multnomah County. This is the concept: you arrest someone for alcohol or drug use, do they go to jail, or do they engage in services, right? And I will not support it if there's not sufficient accountability. Vasquez will not support it if there's not sufficient accountability. What that means is devil's in the detail, but we got to get some of these folks cleaned up, and that means sometimes compelling with you're going to jail or you're going to services, or you can go back to where you came from. I mean, I think that's the brutal reality of this community.
And I guess I'm just piggybacking on what Nick brought up, and maybe SRB team can clarify it. What we understood at our last Good Neighbor agreement was that Urban Alchemy will be not able to be communicated by phone between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. What they did to go around that is they're setting up a dispatcher between 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. over at Clinton Triangle. And then, like Nick said, between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., basically, I think it sounds as if Urban Alchemy is not really able to be contacted, because unless you have a direct number for Urban Alchemy, it's just going to go to voicemail. So just to support Nick here, I would say, is there a way maybe to get, not prioritized in the sense that, well, there's some noise going on, but if there's some intimidating behavior or excessive noise that maybe is linked to domestic violence, that maybe it can get prioritized, police dispatching between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. rather than waiting for the next morning after 8 a.m.
Yeah, I have to, on the police side, I have to talk with the police chief about that. I mean, again, this is it's the rough part of just finding a number of resources. You make a choice, you're going to prioritize here, that means you're taking away from another part of the east side. And so how we make that, call is something I want to leverage the police chief for. I don't know if folks have anything they want to add.
Sure. I'm Scott with Shoulder Services. I can stand up so you can hear you. I am glad to hear this feedback, even if it's hard. And first off, if the community disruption that you are describing is attributable legit to the program's presence there, I will not be defensive about that. I will simply apologize. I think it's important to hear what you're saying and to listen. And especially for those who have stuff going on in their driveway or in their street or whatever that may be related to that project. And I'm just going to be defenseless about that and tell you that I hear you. And I'm sorry that has impacted you and disrupted you and been to this level of frustration. And I mean that sincerely. With regard to what you brought up about can Urban Alchemy respond late at night if there's something weird going on or something that's related to that, it is, I will be transparent, it's challenging for us, but that does not mean we can't do better. And so I'm hearing you. And we will absolutely look at what we can do better. From the other side, I will tell you, they do a hell of a lot. And I know that if it's you at 1 a.m. and there's something crazy going on, or that's all you feel and know and hear, and that's understandable because that's your life and that's your family. I will tell you just from the other side, I won't belabor it, they do a hell of a lot to mitigate the other stuff. That is in the Good Neighbor agreement that you mentioned, and so if there's ways we can get better, I want to know that and I want to hear that and we want to do better. So let me just say that point blank. With regard to the overnight, we are currently, you're talking about the dispatch system. The idea here is that instead of having everyone call random and then random people pick up the phone, we have an organized system such that when any call comes in like that, there's somebody there to get to the right person to respond. what I think had been happening with the model was that instead it was more like site-specific, and it wasn't as good as it could be. Now, we're going to look at this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then we'll look back at what we can do better. For the overnight situation, I'm hearing you right now, that was not my understanding as we have been working to build this out as we come through the end of the fiscal year into the next year. But I will track that, and we will find out if there's something we can do about that. That was not exactly my understanding, so maybe there was some crossed wires, but regardless, we will absolutely look at overnight coverage and making sure that we can be responsive if there is an issue. And so I wish I had more detail for you to make it sound better and feel better that way, but I'll just be transparent, we will absolutely look at that.
Then just one more question, again, piggybacking about the trailers on near the Waters Boys and Girls Club, is that it seems as if accessibility is only of importance to the city if the person who is reporting is disabled themselves, and sometimes it only impacts one disabled person. Well, even one disabled person being impacted negatively is one person too much. So ADA accessibility really needs to be observed 24/7 all over, and there shouldn't be this attitude when you call in about concerns about ADA accessibility. A citizen asking the person, are you impacted yourself? Because a lot of times a member of a disabled person or the disabled person himself will ask other neighbors to call in to support them in their ability to be able to get to Max or the bus stops, or be able to get to school, or be able to get to any other places they need to be included in society. And I always want to remind, because I didn't know this, strollers are considered a mobility device. So even if a mother is having a problem being able to access whatever she needs, if she's got a stroller, that's also considered mobility. And I personally feel that the city is really doing enough vis-a-vis respecting ADA accessibility. The particular camp right there, the green sign went up on the 19th of June. Theoretically, because it was reported as ADA access, anybody walking by can see that there are barricades set up that they can walk there. It should have been cleared up within, the cleanup should have started 72 hours after posting. Today is the 10th day, and it's still there. So that means there's a whole bunch of people theoretically, like seniors with mobility issues, people who are physically disabled, people with invisible disabilities who might have trauma, who's getting past there, who have not been able to get out and about. So I just wanted to put a plug for ADA accessibility.
I think ADA Lens has really helped the conversation in a lot of ways. Your point's very well made. I think, when you advocate for cleaning up the city, everyone assumes you're just saying that on behalf of rich property owners downtown, and they forget the impact of encampments on those suffering from disability or working class Portlanders who live in Lents and throughout the east side. And so all I'm saying is thank you for bringing that up, and just keep plowing away at that area. And it does kind of get into the whole equities of this challenge, like who's facing the worst ramifications of encampments. It's often our seniors, it's often parents, it's those suffering from disabilities, and it's the working class. And that's why we've got to be rigorous in all parts of this, and there's ways about it. What other questions can I answer for you? Go ahead.
On fire safety, any plans to actually enforce fire ordinance here? I know it's happening, enforcement is probably possible. It sounds like pollution is something like that.
Well, I mean, when you look at our fire stations, well, they're not really responsible for the enforcement. It's really police, or it's we have a whole enforcement team. But when you're talking 4th of July, the ability to be all over the city makes it really, really difficult.
It'll make these guys' jobs easier.
It certainly would. Like, it's just a matter of the resources to actually enforce. I also wish there was a simple answer on that, but our volume's going to go up 4th of July no matter what. People are out and about, there's more injuries, there's more and a lot of dispatchers don't want to work on 4th of July, surprising, maybe shocked to know. So across the board, our response times go up. And so it's just a hard thing to enforce, to be brutally honest, just at the volume. I wish I don't know, the firefighters have any great ideas. You guys have any great ideas on how to enforce that better?
So, Commissioner, when it comes to 4th of July, that's one of our busiest days of the year, and I'm sure you can understand that. And we anticipate that every year, and we usually do what's called upstaffing. And what that means is we bring in extra rigs that are like the brush unit and the engine, and we bring people in, and it comes with a cost, it's overtime. And we typically put more people on duty for a time frame during 4th of July because we do have an overabundance of incidents that occur during that time. With that being said, trying to mitigate the hazards of fireworks and stuff like that would be like you trying to get rid of an ant colony by killing one ant at a time. In other words, it's not going to happen. The best we can do is honestly be reactive to when something happens as opposed to trying to be proactive, because those are adults doing things that they think they know better, so we can't stop it.
Can I tag on to that though? 10 blocks from here, every year, like clockwork, I mean, the full-blown mortar, like it is 2 blocks from our house, every year, like for several nights, before and after. So it's literally visible from here. So I guess in the immediate neighborhood.
Yeah. So I've been at the station for about 8 years, and most of these firefighters out here have been here long term as well. 4th of July is unreal in this area. It literally sounds like there is a battle going on in Lents. You can go to another part of the city, and it's actually pretty quiet. I don't know why anybody would spend money on fireworks when you can come to Lents and get it for free. It just, like I said, we can't prevent it, but we are aware. And fortunately for you, we do have, in my opinion, I'm very biased first off, I'm Lents, I love it. We have some of the very best firefighters that our Bureau has right there. And I would put them head to head with almost any other station, and I feel that we would come out on top in skills and performance. So when 4th of July happens and your area starts to just come off the rails, you're not going to find better help than what you have right here.
Well, I feel safer knowing that you guys are.
Yeah, we're dumb. Don't get me wrong. We're dumb because we're here. But we take a lot of pride in that. So.
Start ticketing people, and that way, these guys hopefully have less to do in the future years, and we're not dispatching them to go solve stuff, and the city gets more money because we just ticket them.
Oh, you're talking about fireworks?
I mean, it's not an issue.
Yeah, no, I get it. The question is, again, 4th of July, there's a lot of other things that happen. I mean, it's the weather gets good, summer comes around, not only do we have a lot more accidents, more people are drinking, more people are fighting, like our whole system just becomes more taxed. And I wish when it got sunny, people were just in good moods, and usually they are, but they also resort to more crime. And there's, it's a hot day on 4th of July. We're going to see some homicides. We're going to see some stabbings, and you get one shooting on the east side. That's a homicide. It literally absorbs about half of our capacity in the police department temporarily. And so that's the unfortunate reality. Go ahead.
I guess, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Speaking about safety, going back to safety, I think that's the bottom line of this discussion. We wanted to bring you here to hear from a neighbor, immediate neighbor, how do we feel about our own neighborhood, the neighborhood that we're spending money, we're living at, we walk every day. And as an immigrant, I can tell you that I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood, and that speaks a lot. Because I don't come from a very safe country, and I feel 100 times more scared to walk my neighbor. And I think that that's not fair for a teacher that pays her taxes and works 40 plus hours every day to not feel even safe to walk my dogs outside. And
That's where most of my frustration comes from.
And I'm just a little tired that there's an afflux of a lot of people walking the neighborhood with low bars because they come from who knows where. And I get to see them every day, and they come drunk, they come, like high or whatever, and I don't want them to, I don't want to be a target, but I am. And then calling the police because I have done it a couple times, they don't come. Or they come very late, or I don't know where is the balance, because I figured speaking about compassion for them, but where is the compassion for the neighbors?
And none of those people should have jobs. No offense. You guys are doing your best.
I'm sorry, I'm just
No, you're right. It is.
taking bomb, and I don't want to say I told you, because I feel like there's gonna be a point where something's gonna happen, and that's when people is gonna start working. When somebody gets killed, or when, I don't know. It's just I'm really tired of just. It doesn't make sense. Any of this makes sense. I know that you want to help, and it's not your fault and nothing to do with you, but we just wanted you to hear it from an immediate neighbor that lives in Lents. We're dealing with a lot of things, and then you're adding more. It's just piling up. I'm Prozac because I can't live with this reality.
These safe rest villages should never go in the neighborhood or by any business. It's absolutely insane. Blake and I live with the same thing. We live in fear 24 hours a day. Not because people are walking on the street where we live, because they live across from our front doors. It's insanity.
Yeah.
We follow the rules, we pay taxes, we contribute to society. We've got people that live next to us that don't follow the rules, pay no taxes, and contribute nothing but destruction.
I hear you. I mean, when my wife and I chose to raise our family in the city, it was one of the safest cities in America. And overnight we went to average. Sometimes it feels worse than average, but I'm just speaking statistically. We went from one of the safest cities in America to right in the middle. And it was overnight that happened. And it's true in terms of shootings, stabbings, vehicle thefts, homicides. And so the question is, how do we as a community get out of that, right? We took our law enforcement for granted. That's part of how we got here. And I'm sorry, the brutal reality is we don't have enough police officers to respond to the amount of crime we have in our community. We're all going to have to work together to fix that, because every city in the West Coast right now is wrestling with the same problem. They all took their police officers for granted. In a broader sense, we took public safety for granted across the board. And we're paying for the ramifications of that.
And again, we should never, ever have had any of these shelters in neighborhoods or by businesses. It's inviting this into a quiet, peaceful neighborhood for the most part that had no tenants. Now they've got chaos. We've got the same situation where we are. It's the anxiety, the 24 hours a day nightmare that we live with. It's hard to put into words.
It's a state of hypervigilance is what it is.
Yeah.
And anecdotally, we have 11 trailers outside of our house between Cora and Gladstone. Many of them I recognized from 7 months ago. And I just wanted to revisit what the future of RV enforcement looks like. And why does it seem that a couple areas seem to have to carry the burden for the better part of a decade at this point? Yeah. At least 6 years.
Downtown looks great right now, but this area's gotten significantly worse recently.
East Laurel looks all right.
Yeah.
Golf course looks pretty good.
Well, I mean, Laurelhurst Park had a problem. That problem got solved. At the same time, our problem has not been solved, but we've been so lucky to get a 60 pod and soon to be 120 pod shelter. It's crazy. These policies are bad. They're dangerous. It's gotta stop. It's all gotta stop.
I mean, here's the part that, or, you know, the policy trade-offs. So we candidate where I agree with you, where I disagree with you on that. You know, we know when we look at our unsheltered population, the folks out on the streets, we search that in RVs, we got a bunch of different segments there. It's not like just one group. We've got several groups going on. Yes, there's the economically displaced. That is a component. And what we did to a lot of folks who worked in certain industries in the pandemic, it was incredibly disruptive. That is a component. We actually, as a society, do a pretty good job of getting those people back into housing. Families, you don't actually see that many families on the streets of Portland, even though that's often the conversation. Because as a society, we do an okay job at getting them back in the system. But then you get to the behavioral health component and the drug addicts, whether they're from this region or came from somewhere else. And that is just brutalized our system. And it's at a time when we don't have ramifications for outdoor drug use. You know, Measure 110, nightmare, fortunately is soon to end, but it has been brutal on our community. It has absolutely attracted more of this problem into our city. And so, but what we're left with is like, so what do we do with a couple of thousand folks on the street? We know that some of them are felons, some of them are drug addicts, some of them are mentally ill, some are economically displaced. Right?
Some of them are anarchists and some of them are affiliated with other anarchist groups.
Yeah, and there's this whole segment of folks who just don't like to be told what to do. We call them like old style libertarians. They don't want to live by any rules, whether, they're anarchists or just, they don't want to be told what to do.
And they've got no respect for the neighborhood. They're up all night making noise. It's not safe. It's not, our homes are our sanctuaries. We've lost the use of them, we've lost the privacy, we've lost the enjoyment, and our values have plummeted. So we can't escape.
I think that one of the other Multnomah County commissioners had a pretty good statement on it. But I think that if we're talking about bringing people into safe rest villages, maybe actually not allowing felons to come in, which isn't a thing. Like, there are low barriers, right? Like, are we, there's just people go in there, right? Versus like, okay, this person doesn't have a history of any violent behavior and they just need to get into a rehab center until we can get a spot for them, they can hang out on task, right? Like, I'm not uncompassionate. Like, I understand that it's a hard problem to solve, but maybe not putting terrible people right next to people.
Well, and where I'm being at the tough policy choice, right? This is where we've had to wrestle with. Is it better for that felon or that person who's got some behavioral health issues that kind of bounces back and forth between like being, not a threat, but sort of just feeling sketchy for a neighborhood? Is it better for them to be living on the sidewalk or to be living in a safe rest village? Is it better which is a better scenario? I'm going to bet it's better for them to be in a safe rest village or a task site. Sure. At least we have some services there. At least we have security. We can create an environment that's more stable for them. It doesn't mean that they get to dictate the nature of your neighborhood. It doesn't mean they get to set the rules. That's absolutely, they commit a crime, we're going to bust their ass. That's the only way that we, to
not
balance.
quickly. Her stance is essentially that like something bad apparently needs to happen before, there are some mitigating factors in place. Like when I brought this up first thing, someone's house is getting broken into. It takes over an hour to show up, And I get it. Maybe someone else is dealing with something else in the city. 100% understand, right? But when other neighbors' houses have been broken into in that neighborhood, and the police were there the day before dealing with that person, said, hey, we can't do anything, they're just sitting on the sidewalk, can't do anything about it. So that individual ends up breaking into their house the next night, right?
Yeah.
And the police didn't come out. They said they'd come out the next day to file a police report, and never did. So it's like, what's going on? No, I'm not
Yeah.
part of, I wasn't a part of her circumstance. If that was me, I probably would have advocated for myself a little better, and I probably would have made more of a fuss about it. So I don't know exactly what that individual did. It's a story I heard from them, but it's an immediate neighbor next to us.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I fight on criminal justice every single day. Like, I mean, in terms of, there's got to be ramifications for property crimes. This bullshit distinction between crimes against people and crimes against property, it's a false dichotomy. I mean, there's a very high correlation between people who steal from you today and the people who will physically assault you a year from now, or worse, right? And we went down this path for about, and this is 20 years in the making, in the city of Portland, Multnomah County, and in the state of Oregon, where we started saying some crimes weren't as serious. And so we don't want to criminalize poverty, so we're not going to hold you accountable for breaking into someone's home or their car, or at least you're not going to spend jail time. That was a wrong decision, and we're having to unwind a lot of that in the way it approaches who we release before they see a judge, who does real jail time, and who doesn't. And so all I can say is that I think that pendulum is already shifting. You got a new DA starting January 1 that is going to hold people a lot more accountable than the prior one did. We now need to get the right judges and to have enough jail space for the true, because we know property crimes, like, it's very seldom that someone just does one crime. They do a gazillion crimes, right? And so when Portland was one of the safest cities in America, we did a pretty good job of busting property crimes. So arresting that guy, put him behind bars, and you know what? It may not rehabilitate him, but the 30 days he's in jail is 30 days he's not stealing cars and breaking into your home. And so it does reduce crime. Somewhere along the lines, we don't want to address it that way, but during people's prime years, 20 to 44 for men, it's kind of their prime, or late teens to about 44, society is in a good place if we're actually putting criminals away. And we're going to rehabilitate some of them. Some of them we're never going to reach, but if they're behind bars, they're not committing crimes. And so I think that's the way we need to go. Go ahead, sir.
So you had some solutions where all resources were being used up by going to a car with two people to take care of overdoses.
Okay.
This is great. It cut down on the overhead. What I think will cut down on the overhead here is have the policemen move in to Portland. You don't work for the police department in Portland unless you live here. Same thing with fire. You don't work as a fireman unless you live in Portland. What happens there, the people that take care of the city live in the city. Right now, policemen, I know, come out from Vancouver and everything. They come in here. Hey, I'm done with it during the day. I'm leaving my job. This place wore me out. If they live here, they're going to clean it up and help clean it up. So this is what some of the things that need to be done. This Safe Rest Village here, all the city has been doing, not you, the city bureaucracy, is cleared out the downtown area, pushed it out this direction here. We were asking, hey, this is great. We're going to have a place where we have houseless here, people who are homeless, houseless here in Lents, need a place to stay. People, the rents were too high, they got put out. Could we refer people to the Safe Rest Village? No, you can't. There's no place. You don't have a number. They won't give us a number to refer. We find out that the police are giving referrals out here. So this is being used as a dump for drug addicts out over here in East Portland. And it clears it out of the main city and stuff, and then the neighborhood has to deal with the result of that. You see that village that's right underneath here, all the caravan that's underneath 205, that one camper out in front's meth dealers and drug dealers. They come in weekly to do their business, and they'll be there a few days, they're gone. The people come in with backpacks, come in on the metro lines, they drop off here, over here, or up over at Holgate. They come in with backpacks, you see them distributing and stuff. Nobody does anything. You see license plates here. Most of the license plates over there are from Vancouver. You've got a chop shop going on underneath there right now of bicycles. Over there in 96th and Herald, there was car dismantling going on for quite a while. Heck, when a policeman drives by through the neighborhood and they see something, they've got higher priorities. They're not going to take care of that. And people, that's great. The criminals see that, and so here they come.
Yeah.
And so you have it all up and down. That's why I say policemen need to live in this town or they don't work for the police. Same thing with fire. People who work in the fire department and police department need to work here. And your idea of having restoring this, the neighborhood watch is a great idea. Because that way you know who the community is. The bad thing about here, we've got all these transient people going through here. Every community has good people, bad people, but you know who they are. And you know what they do. And you know how to avoid and what to expect. There's no one, it's humans. That's the way it is. But when you have transient people coming through and looking to prey on people all the time, who are here, who don't know, that's what happens. You have cars coming in here, no license plate, no identification whatsoever. You just let them go through the city. You know, years ago, when I was raised, you didn't have a plate on your car, you immediately got pulled over.
For sure.
And they did a background check on you too. Nowadays, heck, this is a wild, wild west here in Portland. And why? Because you just let everybody come and go and do what they want. The city people here who work here go and live someplace else because they move out. What are you going to do to make the place better? You make everybody who works here, all city people, city government people, the police department, fire department people who work here in city government and need to live here, and you'll see this place clean up fast, really fast.
Again, I can speak to a couple of pieces of that. So I think that the highest paid city employees at the senior level in city government should live in the city of Portland. And I will make that a requirement. I am now fast forwarding on the political side. If I'm the next mayor, if you're a top 20 employee, you know, a deputy city administrator, or city administrator, or you run a major bureau, you have to live in the city. That will be a requirement. When you get into rank and file in police or fire or some of our other city employees, there's first of all the question, can they afford to live in the city?
What you do is you subsidize them. You give them part of that as part of their benefits. They have the benefit of living in the city. You subsidize a little. These guys here work hard. I know that. They work really hard, both police and fire do. And so what you do is you make it easier for them. Instead of having to commute out, they're here, they come home, hey, they're there. They don't have to do the commute.
I think an incentive.
They have the benefits of living in the city.
And if your taxes go up as a result of that subsidy, is that what you're going to go for?
The taxes are going up now.
I know. Right, so add to that.
For squalor.
I think the concept of an incentive to live in the city is something I'm very open to. And I can't remember if police's current CBA has an incentive. It has had it in the past. I don't know if it does right now. But that's something I'm open to. I don't know that I would, the folks who make the most off the city, I think it's a mandate. Like if you're a senior deputy administrator, I think you're going to be mandated to live in the city because we can require it at that level. Someone's in a collective bargaining agreement, we have to go bargain that. And I'm not sure I would want to mandate it, but looking at incentives is something I'd be very open to.
Yeah, incentives are great.
Go ahead.
So just quickly, we have just a few more minutes, so I just want to make sure, make sure
That's what I was
your
gonna say.
questions are
I'm hoping people can keep their things short. One of the things that I would really appreciate if the neighborhood could do and everyone could do is separate the issues apart from Safe Rest Village, generalized houseless camp, right? So if they keep getting married together as if they're one lump over and over again, and I think I've probably said this every single time we've gathered, can we try to keep them separate? The likelihood of someone in a Safe Rest Village, like you said, it's better for them in the village than it is on the streets, and I 100% agree with that. Also, the type of folks that are willing to accept that kind of assistance are also trying to get their shit together.
Yeah.
So they're a different kind of human. And I do believe that if we could get the kind of neighborhood attention, the immediate impact area, we've talked about getting Urban Alchemy to be more diligent about what they see and what they do about it. Maybe because we are in immediate access to the Safe Rest Village, we could have a slightly higher priority when it comes to calls, because things could happen in that area that could require immediate attention. But I really think that we need to work hard to take the general issue of houselessness into one bucket and the issues of the Safe Rest Village into another, because I think if you separated them out, the actual issues of the Safe Rest Village are far less than the actual issues of the overgeneralized area. And so as a neighborhood, I know it's frustrating, but it's a lot of what folks feel one person to another is going to be out of perspective, and it's going to be out of background, and it's going to be out of immediate experience. There's so many things that could make you feel afraid, for example, that might not make someone else might not be feeling that afraid of going out of their house. So I think it's a perspective issue, but my most important point, the only thing I really wanted to say was I really want us all to try to keep separating those two things out. Otherwise, we lump all the problems on the Safe Rest Village, and it's really actually doing a little more good than harm at the moment. And so I just want to stay focused on how we can manage and mitigate those things versus the whole problem, which is much, much grander. And most of the people, a large percentage of the people that are experiencing homelessness have come from some sort of trauma in their lives. And there's so much shit that's gone wrong for them that they can't get themselves to a place where they can get out of it. Some make terrible, terrible choices, and some are trying to get their shit together. So I just really want to try and extract out those folks who are really trying to do something good. And I do believe that as much as it's raised the noise floor of chaos in our neighborhood, it's still overall better for them to be in the village than it is to be sleeping in the drive strip next to my house.
Thank you for that comment. I think it's very, very fair.
Commissioner, before you answer this last question, is there anyone that has not spoken that wanted to speak before we take this last question? Okay, just making sure.
Thank you. Former public school teacher. He knows how to run.
First grade.
It's not really a question, but not everybody has been actively involved in the Safe Rest Village discussions that started around January 2022. Of the community groups that have been involved, it was Lents Neighborhood Livability Association, who has some reps here, and also Lents Strong Housing Team, which I am representing. I did want to say, and I'm trying to keep it in per Nicole's request that we stick to Safe Rest Village, is that we were a little misled about the idea of low barrier. Because when we were asked what low barrier meant, we were told that it meant that people could bring their pets. It meant that particularly opposite sex couples could bring their partner, because a lot of times shelters are segregated by sex, you know. And it was also a way for people maybe who were in recovery and needed a more stable footing than a tent. Because we all know that without stable housing, everything falls apart. So even if it's a tough shed on a toxic waste dump or whatever, it's still better than being in a tent on the spring water corridor. And at no time, at least for Lents Strong Housing Team, did we understand that low barrier meant that drug use would be allowed and that there would be wellness checks performed on an hourly basis to make sure that even though the community guidelines say no drug and alcohol use in the program, that it was widely accepted that people would be doing that. And yes, being revived is a human right. So if people are in danger of overdosing, they need to be revived. I do believe that. And I do believe that, again, recovery is not a linear process and that people are flawed and they may have relapse. But this is a little different right now from being low barrier as in accepting, meeting people where they're at and realizing that people are flawed and everybody is doing the best they can at the moment, to frankly being enabling. And what's going on is we're finding a lot of drug dealing going on in our neighborhood, as my husband said, that's beyond that 1,000-foot perimeter that Urban Alchemy is monitoring, because they know they can get away with it. The Willamette Week article, my favorite topic of conversation since March 27, 2024, said that there were serious allegations of drug dealing and drug sales at the Clinton Triangle, Urban Alchemy operated site, and at Reedway. It was acknowledged by house people, but again allegedly, that there was rampant drug use that was being allowed, to the point that it was making people who were seriously committing to recovery have their sobriety being compromised. And I was very happy to hear at our last GNA meeting, and I just want for the record, I've been attending every GNA meeting, and Charlie will go and testify. I've been at every SRV discussion during the 6 months of this, so I've been actively involved throughout, is that it seems like it doesn't really matter. People are being allowed to use, and where it's becoming a big concern is we're meeting women who are living in their car, who are victims of domestic violence, who cannot get into a safe rest village, even though they would love to. They have a dog, they're vulnerable, they're being told it's okay to live in a car, while hardcore drug users are using it as their operating base. That's not cool, it's not fair to the neighborhood, it's not fair to people that are last GNA meeting. Good job, Urban Alchemy. They're going to have apparently sober living pods sent there. My big concern is, and nobody's able to answer this, is HB 4002 is taking effect September 1st, 2 months from now. City employees are going to be on vacation because it's the summer vacation, and nobody seems to be able to answer my question. How is that going to impact the low barrier nature of the SRV right now? Because obviously, if somebody is caught by an Urban Alchemy staffer using, they are in possession of drugs. And if the drugs are going to be meth or fentanyl, those are going to be the drugs for which possession will be considered illegal. So this is a question that is, to be fair to the practitioners and staffers at Urban Alchemy, are they going to be expected to turn on? Or is the city going to essentially turn a blind eye to illegal activity by saying, well, this is our sanctuary for the hardcore, above the law people? And then my other question is, will the city, as part of this low barrier, which is what actually we had all understood in the first place, going to require their guests, their residents, their participants, to participate in some type of recovery program, while still recognizing that people in recovery will relapse. We are all human, we're all traumatized, and some people more than others. But these are important questions because it's not going to be fair from an ethical or legal or constitutional position to have people in a safe rest village. They're being told being implied that they can do whatever they want in these pods and then get arrested. Like it becomes catnip, essentially. It becomes an internment camp to potentially go and arrest and put people in prison. Already people have the attitude, this is an internment camp, a concentration camp with guards. So I would really like to see, I don't expect an answer right now, but start thinking when HB 4002 takes effect on September 1st, what is the policy going to be? You need to make it clear to the practitioners and staff at the Safe Rest Villages. You need to make it clear to the guests and participants there. And we need to go and make sure that everybody can coexist reasonably and respectfully, and some of us need a little more help in doing that. But we were frankly misled by what was going on. As Todd said very clearly, and as the meeting, they had no business putting a safe rest village in a very residential neighborhood. All the other safe rest villages are in a little bit more of a commercial, industrial area. So the neighbors can be a little more ha-ha, hee-hee, ho-ho about it, and less despairing, because again, they're not that impacted. Our side of the neighborhood, we're not immediately, we're pretty immediate. We're near Lents School. Even as soon as the SRV opened, we noticed more what we euphemistically call wandering. And actually we blame it more on the fact that they were, again, as my husband said, sleeps downtown and in central east side, so they wound up here. But wandering, I'm going to be frank, is that if we were not very nice people, we'd be calling the police and it would be a really unwanted call about stuff like, hey, there's somebody criminally trespassing in my driveway, pretending they're looking for recyclables, you know? And it's like, no, we understand people need to look for, but it's too much. It's really too much. We shouldn't, like Melissa said, we should not be scared to walk out of our house while walking dogs. We should not be afraid. We pay an inordinate amount of property taxes, and renters pay the property taxes as well, which is included in their rent. It's not fair, it's not cool, but right now, my biggest, one strong housing team's biggest concern is this HB 4002, and also the fact that the only way we're hearing about anything egregious happening at the Safe Rest Villages is through Willamette Reed or street routes, and that's not cool either. There were 12 deaths Portland-wide at the Safe Rest Villages in 2 years. We only heard about 2 through Willamette Reed, and that occurred in March, and then now, and the county is only aware of 6, so like our people being disappeared.
Joanne, I don't mean to cut you off. Mitch, we're supposed to go back into service here in a couple of minutes. Do you want us to remain out of service, or do you want us to wrap this up?
I need to run. I have actually my next event, so I really appreciate you all coming in. Appreciate Fire hosting us today.